Now I would like to welcome Dr. Shalini Sarin, who's a Vice President and Country Partner HR and CSR for Schneider Electric India. Schneider has been, helping the whole cause from I think 2 years now, and Shalini has herself been very passionate about the cause. Schneider Electric India is the most recent signatory of the Women's Empowerment Principles in India. Shalini today will be talking about various initiatives that the company has taken. Dr. Sarin began her career as a teacher of organization, behavior, and then moved to the corporate world. She worked with PwC, Youths, Motorola University, and then worked as a practitioner with Godfrey Phillips, and then Kane India, before joining Schneider Electric. In her career spanning over 24 years, Shalini has held roles in the area of organization development, leadership development, talent management, global compensation, and has driven strategic HR transformations and change. She has led organization restructuring and transformation projects. She is also an executive coach to CEOs and senior management. Shalini was nominated the chairperson of the National HRD CSR Committee and a managing trustee of Schneider Electric India Foundation and Spreading Happiness Foundation. She is very passionate about contributing towards sustainability. Shalini, over to you.
Thank you very much, Namit. And thank you, Rashmi, for setting the context. It's made my life very, very easy. So I'm here now going to take the next steps from where Rashmi left, and she's talked about, she set the context on the women empowerment issue that we have at hand. What are we talking about today? We've been celebrating Women's Day for over 100 years. And people who say there's no glass ceiling, look at the numbers that Rashmi shared with us. So at birth, we are more or less 97 women to 100 men. Entering the workforce, it halves, 48 or whatever percent. Middle management, post-mommyhood, halves again. What happens to those women? They've studied, they are capable, they are competent, they are qualified. Half of them don't come back. What happens to them? After that, senior management, it halves again. 10 to 12, 14% you said? I saw some studies saying 10 to 12, more or less the same. Halves again. So all that war of talent that we've been having, halves again. At the board levels, it's 5 to 10% again. So what happens to those 97 to 100, and now we have just got a handful of 5% or 8% women left? We are really, really losing out on this huge resource. And then each one of you who is in the corporate world or even in the development sector, you know, to get competent people, we are all fighting for those handful competent people, because where are the women? Where are the competent people? So therefore, there's something that we really, really need to do to address this issue in a serious way. So all those of us in our minds who say there is no glass ceiling, I think we need to question ourselves. I think we really need to do something. I was talking to Namit a little while ago, and I asked him, how many people have signed up the web? And signing up a web is just helping you report, record, and measure. The moment you start to become aware of a few things, like your own body weight, when you weigh yourself and you say, wow, then you do something about it, right? And unless you start to report this, how are you going to take the actions which you haven't taken for the last 100 years? So I think we really need to help him and do something more. And 9 companies only have signed in so far. So it's a dismal number today. Why does Schneider believe in it? So I think we've been very, very fortunate. Globally, our global CEO, Jean-Pascal Tricoire, is a great believer of this. And it's for 3 reasons. One, of course, I've just reiterated to you that we are all in this war of talent. And unless we develop that other gender which is available, which is competent, which has different set of skills, we are always going to struggle for that talent. So let's do something to seek them out, to support them. That's the number one criteria. The number two criteria, he believes, and we all believe, that today the buying decisions or our customer base is just not men. A lot of buying decisions are also made by women. So if we miss out planning, thinking, applying, designing, selling the way the other gender makes the buying decisions, we will miss out on the customer base. So it's a business case. It's not a CSR issue in Schneider, very, very clearly. It is an imperative business case for us to seek out those women. The third one, and we all believe and know that women possess some complementary skills which men do not have, and we complement each other, and that's how God made us. Women are more compassionate, more collaborative, better team players, can do multitasking, perseverance. So there's a lot of stuff that we've seen that women bring to the table and is complementary to the skills that men have. So with that context, just let me share with you what Schneider is doing. So we call it diversity and inclusion. And inclusivity is what is very, very important. And it's not to create a women's club where men are excluded. It is to have a gender balance. And one is about gender. The other diversity that we address is differently able people, cultural ethnicity, and various other things. Globally, so we are present in over 100 countries, and we are about 160,000 employees worldwide. In India, we are about close to 20,000 employees. Globally, culture and ethnicity is also a very big measure in every leader's KPI. So having people from the new economies, mature economies, different ethnic backgrounds. In India, this year we focus on the gender issue because we have a long way to catch up, and this is a bigger issue for us. So today we are about 19% women in India, and about 3 or 4 years ago when we started, we were about 9%. So we've made some progress, some move, but a lot more to make. And you will be surprised to know it is the blue-collared workers where we have 20% women. And somebody was asking me the other day in some interview, how did that happen? I said, I think that happened because we have more factories in the south than in the north, to be very candid. In north, we find it far more difficult to hire blue-collared women workers, or even the white-collared. The biggest challenge that we have today is the commercial teams, the sales and marketing teams, because what Rashmi mentioned, because of the environment or travel conditions. So while you may do whatever it takes to support through policies, etc., there is a safety, security which is outside of your control. So that needs to be addressed as well. So it has to be a joint effort between everybody. So yes, we want to be a preferred employer, and we want to create this differentiation by promoting a gender balanced society or company. We want to brand it internally and externally. These are the actions that we take. We want to increase our diverse pool and provide development opportunities so that at the top also we have the same numbers being reflected. What do we do? So what we do is pretty much like a pyramid. The first thing is the top management commitment. So in every top manager's KPI, you know, the corporate world is largely driven through KPIs. Once it gets inserted into your KPIs, then things get done. And now I'm also inserting it into their bonus tips. So whatever it takes to make things happen, because we tried 4 years ago when we launched this, but you know, things don't happen automatically, we realized. So let's try and, so I'm not a believer of quota system, but I believe if something hasn't happened, after that it's merit. But to begin with, we need to make some effort to bring that quota so that we do that effort. And later on, it's merit that plays in. So what we do is we've told the business leaders that at your, so if you are N, up to your N-2, you have to hire one more woman this year. Of course, at campus, it's very easy because today we have more and more engineers enrolling, and ours is largely an engineering company. So it's increasing, and this year we've hired 35% women out of the 180 that we hired from the campus. And we want to continue to increase this to 50%. And of course, we continue to map the market to ensure that we have some KPI at the country level, which is for me and the CEO, to increase the gender ratio again at all levels. And we realize there are some roles which are more amenable to hire women. Some things like key account management, things like, of course, we have a lot of good ratio in IT, HR, finance, which are traditional sectors, but we want to get them in the non-traditional sector, because when we did hire a couple of leaders, women business leaders, we saw the kind of impact that it had on the business was far better than just having people in the support functions. The second is we do a lot of stuff now and this is since the last 2 years, on career discovery discussions and workshops for them. There are learning circles that we have in our R&D and IPO centers. So just trying to increase the talent pool. So we had a talent pool of 20% in the organization, and 4 years ago there were 2% women, and they were at the younger level. So now we are increasing that, and we've got to 8% talent out of the 20%, so which is very, very reaffirming for us. Recognition, ensuring that exposure. So when we have our global CEOs or global comics coming in, ensuring that there is an exposure, one-on-ones organized, lunches, dinners, mentoring by senior. There's a global mentoring program for talents from new economies, women from new economies. So we have those programs running also. And it's a bilingual program. So we realize that just by sensitizing the women, we are not going to achieve our numbers. There's a lot of workshops that we have and e-learning programs for the men. So it's a bilingual program. What do you do for the women folk and what do you do for the men folk to help them understand the value of the gender balance? And there we get the men who have women in their teams to talk about it and conduct the workshop. A lot of stuff on external branding. And of course, we realize that we need to have the basics in place. So we have a PSH committee launched last year with an external independent member on the board. Quarterly reviews, all cases reported, and there's so much learning that we get out of it every time, that we are building and strengthening it. And I can share some examples if we have time. We have our National Security Officer who has a special program on women's safety. Our policies on maternity and ethol, which you've talked about, which most companies are doing, are extremely friendly. So 3 months by statute, another 3 months, which is 6 months, and then work from home or flexi hours provided to ensure that women talents are taken care, but not at the cost of performance. So it cannot be an excuse. I remember the other day, I have this young girl in my office, and she said, my project, she was supposed to deliver a project and it did not get completed. So I said, what happened? So she said, no, I'm pregnant. I said, so are you sick? I mean, it's a normal part of your life. I have 2 children. They are grown up today. We all had our, motherhood times. We all had pregnancy times. That cannot be an excuse not to deliver. So I think on the other side, we have to sensitize women also, not to take this as an excuse not to perform. At the same time, we have to be sensitive and sensitize the men to ensure that they support the women during those pregnancy or mommyhood years, the early years of mommyhood. So lots of KPIs and lots of actions for the talent acquisition team. We say that 30% of the profiles for any position that you get should be women. It's never easy. In our sector, in the power sector, it's a nightmare. But we keep pushing them, and we do see improvement year on year. We say that every time a woman is hired, the consultant will get 2% extra fee So we are incentivizing them. For internal referrals also, we have an incentive. So we keep learning every day and we keep implementing new stuff. For learning and development to ensure, again, sometimes we get accused, is there a quota system? But then if you are consistent, if you are transparent, if you see that only the meritorious women will get recognized, then people will stop talking and that corridor talk will end. But it's consistency of effort, the transparency of merit that will get it done. But in the beginning, there will be those corridor talks. A lot of communication networks and all around it. Now this is very interesting, and this is incidentally my last slide on the web and diversity, and the next one slide I have on the CSR work that we do. So on each of the principles, when we signed it, and thanks to Namit and the team, after that we started to measure it. What are we doing in each area? So we have our MD's commitment, we have the country KPIs that I talked about, treating women fairly. So we've started to see at different levels on pay parity, on flexible working hours, the KPIs that I talked about, the PSH committee at the next level. So we've done work and we will review ourselves on this and measure ourselves. And in the external areas, we still have to do some more work, like Rashmi talked about. The external environment, we haven't yet reached that level. This is just to give you a snapshot of our CSR work that we do. So we've just given you the numbers on various initiatives and programs. But I want to just share two stories with you, and this I experienced recently. So I'm not going to spend too much time going into the details of this. And let me share the last two stories that I experienced on CSR and are related to women. So I went to this village in Nagpur, close to Nagpur, about 20 kilometers away from Nagpur, which did not have any grid connection. So we were doing our solar light electrification, providing them the solar home lighting system. And we thought we are really, by providing this, going to emancipate the women and help them for education and all the fancy stuff that we think about sitting in our air-conditioned office. And over there, the women said, now I will have less UTI, the urinary trouble that women have, because they hold on to their bladder because they have no access to energy and they cannot go out, and there are some foxes around that location. So there are a lot of women who were suffering with UTI. So that access to energy we thought would give light and advancement and all of blah blah blah. But actually it is as basic as this. And of course she said, I will be able to see the food that I cook and there will not be insects falling in, because I can't really sometimes see the food that I cook, and I cook all the activities before sunset. Because after sunset it's pitch dark. And there's this man who says, Aap to mere ghar suraj le aaye. Because he only knew light through sun. The other short story which I experienced just last week, I was in this village called Champaner, and beyond that Ramgarh, and then I went to Bilaspur, a small Dalit basti there. And we had done some program with Action the Aid, our partner, on again rural electrification and also entrepreneur development. Because when we do electrification, after that maintenance and upkeep of that system has to be done. We can't just install and then forget about it. Somebody has to ensure that it keeps running. And this guy who was running the program shared with me, he says, we trained so many electricians, 20 in every batch, but the guys who become entrepreneurs and are the ones who are doing very well, we studied, those are the guys who have a woman behind them who's managing the finances. Each of the programs, there is a mother or a bhabi or somebody in the family, because they don't care, I mean, it's like a joint family, so mother, bhabi, sister, cousin, who would be. But it is always 10 on 10 times the entrepreneurs over there in that setup were managed, and motivated by a woman managing the accounts. So we are now trying very hard across the country. We've just had success in Chennai, where we want to train women electricians. As per our mandate, we can do anything in the area of energy. So we are trying to get, but in the north we don't get women group, but in the south we've had specific groups for women. And I've told these women in Patna, close to Patna, that if you can collect a group of 20, I'm going to run a program, and 5 have enrolled. So with that, I end my session.
Thank you, Shalini.